Because we're still here at the Mining Emotion Summit, bringing you some highlights from the second day. We've heard from Sami James, we heard also from Stuart Bailey and the head of the Africa Mining Strategy Group. My last sit down was with the curator of this fascinating 2-day conference. He happens to be a prince of the Ashanti Kingdom, but also the managing director of AGI in the person of Oheneba Kwaku Duah. He spoke about why this conference was important and how it was going to position Ghana as Africa's next mining hub. Massive 2 days of high-level discourse under the distinguished patronage of His Majesty Otumfuo Setutu, who opened us up yesterday. We've had President Mahama as well. I have the curator of this very powerful program, Oheneba Kwaku Duah, to give us some insights into how we got here and what next, because mining emotion has been pretty big. Oheneba, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you, man.
Wow. I mean, how did we get here? This is massive. Just give me a bit about the vision and how you managed to pull this off.
Well, it started very simply, to put it as such. It was a breakfast conversation that led to the creation of the summit. My father and I were watching TV during breakfast, and there was this segment on the news that came up about some mining practices that were not exactly sustainable. And he looks at me and he's like, I wish we could do something about this thing. And then it led to the start of some reclamation projects that my father and myself have been engaging in. And what we realized was that in the course of raising financing to support these land reclamation projects, there was a common concern amongst anyone, of any well-wisher or anybody who is interested in supporting such a project, and that was around the sustainability and how long-lasting it would be, because they expressed some concerns around, okay, we can reclaim and they would come back, so what makes this different? So we thought about it and we said, look, the conversations around mining now are had in very polarized manners. You have the regulators talking to the miners, then you have the large-scale mining companies on another side, then you have international regulators all the way somewhere else. So we said, okay, why don't we just put these guys in one group? Why don't we merge the international regulators, such as the OECD, the LBMA, the World Gold Council, and then why don't we bring the local regulators, which is the government here, the miners, the artisanal miners, the large-scale miners, the people involved in the sector, NGOs, academia, and let's have a time to brainstorm. And in the end, we ended up coming to the conclusion that...
but what is your background and interest in mining? Because obviously, you ought to have some knowledge in the area to attract this level of participation, correct?
Well, it's because I come from the kingdom of gold, is what one would say in simple terms. The Ashantis have been mining gold for over 400 years. There is a very rich history with the resource. So I would say that it's almost enshrined in our blood. Because of that, we've been able to have meetings, and we've been able to meet several phenomenal people, such as some of the people here today. And through that network, we've been able to create and convene such a powerful gathering.
One of the speakers from the Uganda, who's from the Africa Mining Strategy, said his third principle was, and I quote, culture, community, and custodianship. And he spoke about the important role of traditional authority in structuring mining. How critical was it for His Royal Majesty to endorse and to lead this effort, to give the opening address, and to personally say that he supports efforts to make mining more sustainable?
One thing that's very symbolic of our culture is that traditional leaders are viewed almost as father figures. And that is a very significant role that my father takes very seriously, providing that overarching fatherly figure role. He knew that, like I emphasized on my last point, that the conversation is being had here, there, and there. So why don't I, a singular entity that has the power to bring everybody into a room, why don't I do that? That was how he went out of his way to ensure that we would be able to create a very impactful conversation. Regarding what he does as a custodian, My father is very adamant about sustainable mining, about sustainable practices. I can tell you a funny story. If my father is building a house, every time he cuts a tree, he goes home and he's like, that's just how passionate he is about the environment, because he wants to see our communities flourish. He believes a lot in sustainability.
2 points. Finance has been a big issue. We have great ideas, great entrepreneurs, but we've never really cracked the finance thing. A lot of the companies in Africa are multinational companies. South African, British,
American,
Australian,
Canadian.
Is that of concern to Mining in Motion? And is there an effort to create a new domestic capital class to also own some of these large mining companies?
That's a very good question. Local ownership is something that myself I'm very passionate about. I've said it time and again that no matter how much we push for local ownership, unless we're financing our own projects, we will never be able to maximize local ownership. Because you cannot tell somebody to come from this country to finance your operation or to extract resources from here and have everything shared on a 50-50 split. The person who puts the skin in the game is the person who expects the most in return. And I believe it's something that we as Africans really need to look at as to how we're going to be able to generate capital. There's many ways that foreign companies generate capital. Stock exchange, banking institutions. And I think that the world is at a crossroads. I think that things have changed. And I believe that now a lot of internal capital is being generated here. One thing that I would always stress for local companies to do is to spend money on studies. Once you have a strong and robust feasibility study, and you're able to back your project with hard-line data, it's very easy to go out to capital markets and raise financing from banks and financial institutions. And I think it's something that more focus needs to be had on supporting our resource extraction with hard-line numbers. That would be able to de-risk the projects that we go in for, and we would be able to raise money ourselves. That is one thing that obviously Mining in Motion emphasized on. So if you notice, one of the panels was funding models of ASN. And one of the things that we obviously ensured that was how artisanal miners, be it through cooperatives or even if individually, can raise financing themselves through feasibility studies, through access to capital markets. That's why the conversation was being led by EcoBank, StoneX, financing institutions, African Development Bank, as to what they as financing institutions would expect to see from mining companies. So what we want to do is to educate these mining companies and advocate for the support of...
Finally, what's your biggest takeaway from here? And what next? Should we expect Mining in Motion 2.0? Will it be in Ghana still?
Definitely. I think that the reason why we're all here today is about minerals, but the star of the show is gold. And without a doubt, Ghana is the capital of gold in Africa. We're the largest producer. And we have arguably the most robust frameworks for gold extraction. So we're definitely going to be keeping Mining in Motion 2.0. So that obviously goes to answer your question. Yes, we're we're already putting plans in place to ensure, and my minister said it on stage as well, the Honorable Amabuwa, who I honestly have to give credit to, that this conference, in as much as it was something that we curated ourselves at the palace, he took it really head on, and he became a co-convener with my father, and he was very passionate about it. I have to give him his flowers. He is somebody that inspires me, and I believe should inspire a lot of young Ghanaians out there, because he's been phenomenal in the way he's handled the situation. So yes, it's something that myself, my father, the ministry, we will be looking as to how we can partner with entities like the African Union, the World Bank, World Gold Council, the OECD, the LBMA, to having Mining in Motion as a recurring.
Wow. Oheneba, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so there you have it. 4 critical interviews from Mining in Motion, putting together various thoughts about reimagining the gold sector in particular for the continent. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.